some selling decisions aren't based on price, they're just based on personal circumstances. I left my job at the end of 2023, and one of the things I've always said that's a better investment than Bitcoin is investing in yourself. It's like you look at it as a cost, but actually it's something that's going to make you more money in the long run, right? So it's an investment. That's what an investment is. Like you don't think of buying Bitcoin as a cost. Oh, it's going to cost me so much money. No, you think about it like I'm putting this money in here so that it becomes more money. They make 100 investments, 2 of them make all the money, 5 get their money back, and 90 of them all lose their they lose their money on the 90.
Hi, everyone. This is Jack Allwild with another money episode. Today we have very special guest, Daniel Sempere Pico. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jack. Very well pronounced.
So you can find Daniel at BTC Gandalf on X, or you are themonopoly.com. I found him on X. So Daniel, before we get into your Bitcoin journey and what you're up to now, I do like to start off the conversation by asking, what was your relationship with money like growing up?
That's an interesting question. No one's asked me that before. Yeah, I would say I had a bit of like an insecurity around money. So my dad wasn't great with money. And as soon as I started to realize that, I started to feel quite insecure, like, he could lose his job, or that, we wouldn't be able to go to school anymore or whatever because he'd like messed something up. So there was definitely like insecurity around finances. Although, yeah, I guess luckily there was like no catastrophic events. But my dad was like, he quit school in early secondary school. So maybe he was like 12, 13, and he went to work at the same business that his dad, my grandfather, worked. And he worked at that same company for 40 years, worked his way up from like loading trucks to sales to GM, and then eventually was like opening their factories around the world. But it was like he didn't speak English very well. He spoke Spanish, but he was living all around the world. He had a very I think he was like uniquely suited for the role he had at this company. But if he had ever been fired or lost that job, uh, I don't know what he would have done. So there was a lot. I would say, like, even though we weren't left wanting for anything, there was always this sense that if he messed something up or if he got fired, we'd be screwed. And he lived, even though he made, a middle class income, we always lived paycheck to paycheck because he wasn't very good at managing his finances, saving money, or any of that. So I remember from like maybe 14, 15, like wanting to make a lot of money because I didn't want to ever feel like that myself. And I wanted to like be in control of the finances, like not depend on him or anyone else.
Mhm. Was money ever a topic growing up, like around the dinner table? Like, did you guys discuss it or not so much?
No, my dad he wasn't financially literate. I taught him so my mom gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was maybe
Okay.
14, 15 or something. And I read that. And it wasn't until my parents like got divorced that my mom started investing her money into real estate and stuff like that. So yeah, she gave me that book. And then from there, I sort of went down a rabbit hole of like reading a lot of Warren Buffett books. I was like super obsessed with Warren Buffett and value investing at some stage. I like used to read a lot of Motley Fool, and I ended up like educating my parents on money.
Are there any other books that really stick out as you were developing?
Oh man, I read like Peter Lynch's books, so One Up on Wall Street and Beating the Street. I read back then there wasn't as many books on Warren Buffett as there are today. Like I think The Snowball was like hadn't even come out yet when I was like into Warren Buffett. Um, it was Joel Greenblatt, The Little Book of Value Investing. This is all like 15 or 20 years ago. So yeah, so it was all those kind of things. Like all the classics, I basically devoured as many of them as I could. And I would read them like my browser homepage was set to Motley Fool, and I would read the Motley Fool every day.
So, so then what got you into Bitcoin initially?
So I was working as a real estate. This is like after graduating and everything. Um, I was working as a real estate broker, and in 2017, I was viewing some properties with a client, and we had like a 2 or 3 hour viewing. We were viewing like 10 or 12 apartments in Hong Kong, And so we were just chatting, and he mentioned Bitcoin. I'm sure I'd heard of it before, but like this was like the first time that I sort of like, okay, like I'm gonna pay attention to this thing. So he told me about Bitcoin, and I think I went away and like sort of probably Googled it, read a couple of like BBC mainstream news media articles about it, and then decided it was like a Ponzi scheme. It had no intrinsic value. It was open source, so anyone could copy it, and completely just didn't get it at all. I didn't think I understood what money was, even though I did my degree at university in economics of money, banking, and finance. I went and looked back at the curriculum the other day, and not once were we ever taught what money was. So yeah, so that was the first time I heard about it. Um, Completely dismissed it when when the price crashed in 2018. I was like, I felt vindicated. I was like, see, I was right. It was a bubble, blah, 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 blah. And then I had another friend who was also banging on about it. And in 2019, when the price went back up to 10K, I was like, okay, there's something I'm missing here because bubbles don't reinflate back up. If it was truly a bubble, it would have just died. And so I was like, okay, I need to look into this. So I bought some with the intention of like having skin in the game, hoping that would incentivize me to learn. But I didn't really look at it again until the end of 2020.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what, in terms of like putting the pieces in your mind on what you might have been missing, what did you discover in those early periods of holding Bitcoin that you hadn't known or seen?
So literally nothing until 20, like I think I bought my first bit of Bitcoin in this like June or July 2019. And I honestly didn't, I put it there. I was like, I'm never selling this. It's just going to sit there until I figure out what it is or whatever. And I remember like the COVID crash, I was like trading stocks, not paying, I remember reading, oh, Bitcoin's down to 3K. I was like, oh, whatever. I don't care. I'm not selling it. Just leaving it there. And it was actually like towards the end of 2020. Um, yeah, towards the end of 2020, is I was stuck in a hotel room for 14 days on in quarantine because I flew out of Hong Kong, and to come back into Hong Kong, you had to do a 14-day hotel quarantine, run allowed out. So I had 14 days where I was in a hotel room, and I basically just I'd sort of exhausted all my options of like stocks that I wanted to buy. So I was like, I bought everything that I thought was like a good stock, and then I was like, okay. I had a business, so I had like some nice cash flow coming in, and I was like, okay, let me look at this Bitcoin thing because I need to figure out where to allocate these funds. And yeah, I just sat in that hotel room, basically listening to Michael Saylor podcasts, uh, and yeah, so I guess like I understood the sort of like the hard money aspect of it, the fact that it's a monetary network. I watched a great video with Andreas Antonopoulos where he was like sort of uh myth busting some of the most like common myths about like 51% attacks and China controlled Bitcoin and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, at the end of those 2 weeks, I was like, well, not even at the end of those 2 weeks. Throughout those 2 weeks, as I got more and more bullish, I was like selling the stocks I was least bullish on and buying Bitcoin. And by the end of it, I'd like sold everything and just went all in on Bitcoin.
And speaking of Michael Saylor, I remember that episode he was on with the Investors podcast and his breakdown of what he viewed inflation. That speech, I can link to that actually now that we're talking about it, because that was I got much more bullish after hearing Saylor speak on that. And Saylor, so like speaking of Saylor, like how do you view Saylor in the Bitcoin community? Like some people say, like, well, he has like too much influence. Like it's just it's a new system, but one guy's controlling a lot of it. How do you kind of view him in the Bitcoin space?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Sailor. I don't know if I'll say he has too much influence, but he has a lot of influence. He's right. His words echo, and they're very powerful, and they affect a lot of people. And a lot of people mimic. A lot of people are orange pilled because of what he says, and maybe they don't really look at Bitcoin that closely. They don't understand it closely themselves, but they understand it through his arguments. So he's almost like a conduit for people. Um, so yeah, he can definitely impact. Yeah, he impacts a lot of like how people are feeling. How I feel about it is like there's not really much we can do about it. It's just a matter of it's just a matter of fact. It's like the guy goes on 500 million podcasts and preaches about Bitcoin, and he's companies all in, he's all in, and if nobody else, it's a free market. If nobody else comes in and buys Bitcoin, then he's buying it all, and he's figured out this he's figured out how to use his, how to leverage his microstrat or strategy now. He's figured out how to leverage that and uh, to raise more money to buy more Bitcoin. And until there's not like at least 20 other strategies doing the same thing, he's going to be able to scoop up loads of coins.
Mm.
I think, I think for him personally, I bet you he is wishing, he's probably like, I've got enough now that, if somebody else comes in and starts buying like a big company that has billions of dollars in cash and can leverage and whatever, he'll be happy because he's got enough that it'll make him extremely rich, right? But I also think he's probably, there's a point where, yes, you become too powerful, right? So it's like nobody cares about Bitcoin when it's like tiny, but once it becomes big enough, then it is sort of then it becomes a problem. So I think it's the same thing for Sailor, is that he's probably hoping that someone will come in and take some of the heat and attention away from him. Yeah, so which is why he's like, he was recently he did a video for the Meta Planet shareholders meeting. Like, he talks to all public company. If you want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible, you wouldn't be out there shilling it to other people so that they would buy it. You'd be like keeping it quiet and buying as much as you can for yourself. And then when you're done, then you like spread the gospel as the greatest thing ever and everyone else should buy it. I think he's doing that because he wants other people to adopt this strategy. He doesn't want to end up owning loads of Bitcoin and be like, by far and away the biggest holder.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's nothing we can do. We can't like, what are you going to go censor him, ban him from buying more? Like, there's no, so the only way, if you don't like that Sailor's buying all the Bitcoin, you need to buy more Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, so like long term, so like how do you view, like, is there a price right now where you would sell? Or how do you kind of view like long term? Like, will you be a person that borrows against your Bitcoin? How do you kind of view it in your whole framework?
I've never borrowed against it. I almost borrowed against it literally at the Pico top in 2021. Thank God I didn't. um, I've not chosen to borrow against it in the past. I have sold. Some selling decisions aren't based on price; they're just based on personal circumstances. So, I left my job at the end of 2023, and one of the things I've always said that's a better investment than Bitcoin is investing in yourself. So I've sold Bitcoin to do plenty of that, and I'm confident it will pay off multiples more than having held on to the Bitcoin. It's also a very nice motivator to measure the opportunity cost of the investment in yourself in Bitcoin, because it forces you to look at opportunities and do things in a way that hopefully pays the Bitcoin back in Bitcoin terms. So even though I've sold some, yeah, basically the way I did it was like, if, I have this plan, I'm going to start a business. And if I sell a certain number of Bitcoin, that gives me, like, let's say, an 18-month runway. Will I be happy with that runway right now, even if Bitcoin doubles in price over the time? And it's like, yes, I'm happy to buy that runway right now. How would I feel if I don't do it, hoping it goes up and then it actually goes down by 50%? And I have to sell twice as much Bitcoin to do the thing, or I don't get to do the thing at all. It's like, well, that would feel crappy. That would feel worse than if it doubled. So I just did it.
That's such a great point, because I even find myself having like these competing beliefs. Like, on one hand, I think Bitcoin's going to go up, but you're talking about, yeah, the investment in yourself is often greater than any sort of just holding some other asset. So can you talk about some of the ways you are investing in yourself?
For me, it's skills and knowledge. Yeah. So I didn't really know what I had some faint idea of like the general direction I wanted to take things when I used to work at Brains, a Bitcoin mining company. I did marketing and social media and stuff like that, but at the same time, like, I was tweeting in my own account and I grew that. And so I knew there was something, with writing online and Twitter and personal branding, marketing, that I could do, but I just wasn't sure what. And so I just like bought courses, paid for consulting with people who had been in my position to hear about what they'd done. So like, a lot of people go into ghostwriting, a lot of people go into consulting, and that's ultimately what I ended up doing. But yeah, it was just investing in knowledge and skills so that I could accelerate. I could figure out the path I wanted to take. And then once I was on that path, is like accelerate. I think about it like, when you join a company and you have a manager or you get trained, right? The company is teaching you the skills that you need to do that job and become valuable. So since, in entrepreneurship, you don't have a company and a manager to teach you to do it. It's like I just sought out other people that had done similar things to me. that had, yeah, that had been in a position that I was in, like maybe grew an audience, but didn't know how to monetize it. What did they do? And then just learn, and that was it basically. And yeah, the way it repays is that you can, by doing consulting, selling digital products, stuff like that. Because I wanted to do more online business. Uh, the leverage that gives you is massive, and I think you can make several times the money that I invested in gaining those skills and buying the time over. Now I'm fortunate that I'm making like a lot more than I was at my job, and almost as much as I was making when I owned my own business. So I also had the experience of like investing in buying a business and seeing how turning that around and having the leverage of like, other people's labor and the capital to buy like an existing business with customers and stuff like that. Like I saw how much that could accelerate your personal income versus like a job or, basically against a job. So I've always been quite bullish on, business, investing in yourself. Ultimately, if you're operating a business, the business is only going to do as well as good as you are, basically. So,
Can you maybe share with us, like, what's your next investment in yourself gonna be?
well, I'm paying someone $1,000 for consulting calls in the next week or two. Another ghostwriter. I'm ghostwrite. I ghostwrite right now, and one of the things I'm just trying to improve my systems and processes so I can increase the amount of clients that I can take on and get better results for my clients. So I've been going around and I just either pay to talk to other ghostwriters or I make friends with them and they tell me how they do things or I watch content or whatever, and just to figure out how they do it so I can do it better myself. And I figured like if I go to every single person, as many ghostwriters as I can and figure out the ways they do things, then I just pick and choose, the things that I think would work for me. And then, it's like I have every successful ghostwriter as my teacher.
Mhm. I mean, it sounds like it comes pretty natural to you, but if you were talking to someone that kind of views a lot of these, what you're calling an investment as an expense. Now, I think this is something in our mentality. We need to you kind of determine the difference between an expense and then an investment. Can you give some advice on like if someone were maybe a little scared to invest in themselves, can you give them some advice?
Well, yeah, I think like you put it right. It's just a reframe, right? It's like you look at it as a cost, but actually it's something that's going to make you more money in the long run, right? So it's an investment. That's what an investment is. Like you don't think of buying Bitcoin as a cost. Oh, it's going to cost me so much money. No, you think about it like I'm putting this money in here so that it becomes more money. And it's the same thing in my in in yeah, it's the same thing with buying skills or buying information or knowledge, right? It's you're putting this money in and you hope those skills are going to allow you to be better at the thing that you're doing and charge more and make more and they'll pay back. Yeah, if you can run uh, you know, if you have a business, right? That increases the leverage so I think where people might get stuck is like paying $1,000 to have a consulting call with a ghostwriter if you don't have a ghostwriting business is stupid because you have no way to monetize it to like make it pay off. But if you have a business, that makes a lot more stuff make sense in terms of investments that you can make in information. Like if somebody can show me a system or a process for service delivery that saves me an hour every day, and I pay them $1,000 for that, and it saves me an hour every day forever for every client that I ever have, like I would probably pay them 10 grand for that, right? It's invaluable. Obviously, yeah, it depends on how much money you make, but like, let's say you're making like multiple six figures a year. It's invaluable paying a grand to save an hour every day for 365 days of the year for every client that you have. So,
Yeah, I think it's just yeah, I mean, people want like be able to make a perfect decision, and the reality is in life, there's just no guarantees. Like you'll never be able to make a perfect decision. You'll never have all the facts. Like any investment might not pay off. Just I mean, if you were to pay the $1,000, there's no guarantee they're gonna do what they say they're gonna do, and it's gonna work the way. But yeah, you just kind of have to be comfortable with that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure this person I'm paying is better than me at ghostwriting, and so I'm going to learn something. But let's just say that it turns out that they're doing exactly what I already do. Then it's like I don't have to wonder anymore. I know that like I'm doing things pretty well, and that's also valuable to me, right? Because it's like it's also market research. And I kind of look at it as like I don't look at any single individual investment that I make as like making me or losing me money on its own. It's like, what is the total money I've spent, let's say on consulting calls, right? And am I better off as a result of the overall? Because like maybe one call that I do for $1,000 is like so valuable and one is worthless, but the one that's super valuable pays for the losses of the one that was bad, right? Oh,
See, we look at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of look at like it's almost like a portfolio of investments, and it doesn't matter if one doesn't work out as long as the other ones pay the losses of the bad one. It's like a VC. It's like, yeah, it's like any portfolio. Like VCs treat things this way, right? They make 100 investments, two of them make all the money, five get their money back, and 90 of them all lose they lose their money on the 90.
Yeah. I like the way you frame that. Yeah. I mean, back to the Bitcoin as we're winding down. In terms of your Bitcoin education, what books or resources have you used along the way that have helped you gain knowledge in Bitcoin?
I think there's been a couple. Definitely podcasts have been huge. Um, I like to go on a lot of walks. So yeah, when I was really studying Bitcoin, it was like Preston's podcast, Stefan Livera's podcast, Peter McCormack's podcast, which is now Danny's hosting What Bitcoin Did. Uh, used to listen to Robert Breedlove. Trying to think, I'm probably missing a few, but yeah, those would be like the main ones. And then the other thing was the Twitter timeline. So I would spend like 8 to 12 hours a day on Twitter, partly because it was my job, but partly because like I just loved it.
Huh?
So I would just follow everyone that I could in the Bitcoin space. I've read the Twitter timeline and engaged in discussions and stuff like that. VJ Boyapati's bullish case for Bitcoin was good. Parker Lewis's stuff was good in terms of like stuff that I've read. Um, the Nakamoto Institute stuff is good as well.
Any books?
Trying to think of like, have I ever read a Bitcoin book from start to finish? I think maybe the one by Eric Yates, Bitcoin Seventh Property, might be the only book I've read from start to finish. I read a little bit of the Bitcoin Standard. But like with the Bitcoin Standard, for example, so many people have read that, and that's so many people's Bitcoin thesis is from the Bitcoin Standard, that if you've listened to enough people talk about Bitcoin, you already know the Bitcoin Standard thesis, so you don't need to read that book. Although obviously people love it and it's great, and I've read some of it. I think the version I read was the older version, which had the foreword by Nicholas Nassim Taleb, and then him and Saif fell out because Taleb doesn't like Bitcoin anymore. They fell out, and then now the foreword is by Saylor.
Just figure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Daniel, it's been great chatting with you. I do like to ask everyone that comes on. It's a fun question to close it out. What's the best and worst personal finance advice you've either heard or received?
I mean, the best is invest in yourself, no doubt. Right? Yeah, the best would be, I don't know if I heard this, like this is what I say, this is what I do for myself, which is invest in yourself so you can increase the amount of money you make and then invest the savings in Bitcoin or save in Bitcoin. The worst financial advice, like it's probably like buy bonds. Give your money to a financial advisor so he can charge you 2% to just put you in in like weird mutual funds that also charge you money. That's probably like a terrible decision. Although maybe potentially better than keeping it in cash. But yeah, like when you could just buy an S&P 500 index fund, you don't need a financial advisor anymore.
It's been great talking to you. Why don't you tell the audience where's the best place to get in touch with you or learn about your services?
Yeah, so Twitter is the best place. I'm the most active on there. So I'm at BTC Gandalf on Twitter. And then if people want to join my email list, I try to send daily emails, but often fail. And it ends up being like a batch of days and then nothing for like a month and then another batch of days. But they can sign up at youarethemonopoly.com.
Cool. We will have links to those. Thanks again.
All right.